Come away with me in the night. If I told you my story, would you listen?
When I'm dancing, that's when I feel closest to God. I know that. I think also I learn so much. I learn more and more that it's really not about me, that it's not about any gift or grace I may or may not have. And I learn more and more to be surrendered, to really just be open to whatever God would have to do and not try to control every aspect. So I have to give up a lot of control.
Come away with me in the night, 'cause I've got a story to tell. And it ain't all still waters and green pastures either. No, it ain't still, and it sure ain't green. And it seems like every time I get ready to tell this story, somebody up and writes a new chapter. I can't keep up.
Primarily, I work as a sacred dance artist, and I do freelance work. So right now I'm not attached to any particular organization outside of my own. And so what I generally do is go into churches and lead workshops for either their youth or their children or their adults who are either already part of a dance ministry or just interested in dance and worship. The bulk of my work is with my own sacred dance company, preparing them for engagements and concerts and workshops and the like. So I started taking dance classes in a secular environment growing up, just your local studio with the end of the year recitals with the costumes and the makeup. And I think I was about maybe 12, and of course we've been attending church all this time, and the pastor's wife was interested in having the young people do some sort of dance presentation for Christmas, I think it was, and she came to my mom and said, "Oh, doesn't your daughter dance?" And that's kind of how it started. And the interesting thing is that the spiritual side of things and a lot of the research that I've done and the way in which I try to link the movement to the scripture came out of, in many ways, defending it. Because when we first started, there were a lot of people who just thought that dance had no place in the church. And so I understood at that point in time that, okay, in order for it to have a place, it has to be rooted in scripture. So let's root it in scripture. So I think that's when the faith became a greater part of it and more than it just being dance in a church. I struggle a little bit with, sacred dance and faith. And I guess I've come to this place where I really feel as though everything that the church does has to be relevant. And so, we have to speak to what it is that people are really experiencing. The fact that we're created in the image and likeness of a God that creates has something to do with that. I mean, I think that people inherently have a desire to create, have a desire to produce and create meaningful things, and art allows for people to do that. I also think the freedom that people find in the arts is something that connects with faith, but then also the way that art is sort of ever evolving and that it's this process and that you don't ever, I've heard people say it, but I just don't think it ever happens that you become the master dancer or the master painter or sculptor. I think that your entire life you are learning and growing as an artist, and you're evolving as an artist. And I think that's the same thing with your faith, is that you go from mountain to mountain, from place to place, valley, and you kind of do this, and it's a journey and a process that doesn't happen overnight. There's that connection, I think, between the journey and the process of our faith, and then the journey and the process of engaging in art. The kids that come to us may have danced at their church, but most of them have not had any experience like dancing in a studio or taking dance classes. So generally we start off pretty slowly. It's a task, but the goal is not to create professional dancers, but to give them the technique, the tools of technique, and then the tools of spirituality to be able to speak through movement, and to be able to pray through movement, to critique the world through movement, and to embody scripture through movement. I think we all know that congregations generally take their cues from the clergy, and I just really think it's important for clergy to understand the purpose of arts and worship, and to understand the intersection between theology and dance, or theology and painting, or theology and oration, or theology and music. And I just think that the lives of Christians, as well as church services, would be so much fuller. Try and go back to that place where you created, but it didn't matter what anybody else thought. The place where you can do things with abandon and without being inhibited. And then I think also to find like-minded people. Until you find the other person who says, oh, I know exactly what you mean. When I'm painting, I feel closest to God. When I'm singing, I feel closest to God. Whatever it may be. When I'm writing, I feel closest to God.